ones.
They haven't got a leg to stand on that.
Well, they're standing on a great big leg,
Well,
and that leg's got these stars and stripes down it, and it says
That's the leg.
USA. That's what the leg says.
well, amputation.
My personal theory about how people radicalize themselves to the left is that it happens in 2 steps, with people getting stuck in the first because the second seems so scary compared to the first. The first being disillusionment with the system, something anybody with common sense and a sense of history can accomplish. Just observe the world around you and you'll conclude not only that the system cannot deliver on its promises, but that it was designed not to. But so many people come to this conclusion without radicalizing themselves, because you can be disillusioned with the system, but unwilling to accept the alternative. Revolution. Accepting revolution as the only solution is the second step in radicalization. And revolution is taught to be a scary word, as if it is illegal to even think about. But that's because people spend too much time thinking about its necessity and not enough about its inevitability. When people look at history, they can understand why one event led to another, as if it was always going to be that way. But when they look at their present, they think things like revolution in America cannot happen, as if America will always be this way. And the way we're headed ends in one of 2 destinations: socialism or barbarism. So if you're one of those people that finds yourself stuck, try picking up a book.
Let's get one thing straight. We have had protests, we've had marches, hashtags, we've had viral moments, mass outrage, we've had global attention, and we haven't extracted a single dime from the ruling class. Not $1 in redistributed wealth, okay? Not one structural concession, not one forced policy shift that touches capital, not one transfer of power, not one material loss to the people who actually run this system. What we've had is performance. We've had symbolism, we've had slogans, we've had catharsis, we've had feelings, we've had aesthetics, we've had branded resistance, we've had protest as content, and content doesn't threaten power.
Who owns and controls the economy? That's the dividing line. Now let's talk about welfare capitalism. Welfare capitalism is still capitalism. The corporations are still privately owned. The investors still own the shares. The profit motive still drives production. The difference is that the government uses taxes and regulations to provide things like healthcare, education, unemployment insurance, pensions, and other social programs. That's not socialism. That's capitalism with a safety net. So countries often held up as socialist examples are usually welfare capitalist economies, okay? Private ownership remains dominant, but the state redistributes some wealth through public programs.
Look, as all behavior, class consciousness is not a physical response first, okay? It's a psychological response. And until Marxists and Leninists understand that, your organizing will keep hitting the wall. Everybody keeps talking about material conditions. People will say once conditions get bad enough, the masses will automatically rise up. But consciousness is psychological, okay? Human beings respond to trauma through fight, flight, or freeze. And if we're gonna keep it 100 about this very moment in American history, most of us are not fighting back. We are in freeze mode, okay? Freeze mode from consistent surveillance, from economic instability, from political exhaustion, from algorithmic manipulation, consumer pacification, manufactured consent. People are overstimulated, overworked, propagandized, distracted, and politically traumatized. So that changes organizing. Because if somebody's nervous system is trapped in survival mode, they're not thinking about revolution. They're thinking about safety, comfort, avoidance, dissociation. And that explains why certain demographics are always missing from these protests. Not because they're stupid or because they don't care, but because trauma changes behavior. A traumatized brain avoids risk. So if your entire strategy depends on people spontaneously becoming militant because rent went up, you misunderstand human psychology. Yes, Marx was right about material conditions, but today we also have to understand that neurology, psychology, and behavioral condition play a role, because the modern empire doesn't control resources anymore. It controls attention, emotion, and perception. And once we understand that the public has been psychologically conditioned into political paralysis, then we stop organizing like it's 1968. Then we go back to the drawing board, because the question is no longer how bad do conditions have to get. The question becomes, how traumatized can a society become before it stops responding altogether?